Very good. Okay, so hello everyone, welcome to the Tropilunch. Today we're having Yadira Molina. Thanks again for coming. And so Yadira Molina is a second-year PhD student in the Forest and Conservation program at University of Florida. In 2022, with her extensive experience as a forester in Honduras, she earned a PhD assistantship and an American Association of University Women fellowship to pursue her master's degree in sustainable development at US. In 2004, Yadira co-founded Fundación Madera Verde, a nonprofit organization that works with local and indigenous communities in Honduras. From there, she led the development of the Green Broker Network. This community forest management initiative received the 2014 Innovation Award in Forest Finance from Yale and recognition from Vedanta Foundation for its impacts of poverty alleviation. Yadira also participated in the voluntary partnership agreement between negotiation between the government of Honduras and EU, advocating for the role of civil society in forest governance process. Later, she contributed to revisiting the Forest Stewardship Council standard for group ladies in forest management communities. So thanks again for coming, Yadira, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity and this Tropilunch, and thank you for your presence. And as you can see, this is a boring program and part of the history of what we have done through the organization that, as you say, we founded as Madera Verde. I hope this mouse doesn't, I think I better use this one because that mouse is kind of crazy. Okay, so my talk is very about the preliminary results or the context of the assessment that I when I went to my summer field research for this year. So this is very preliminary and still working on it. So I am very open to any comments, any suggestions, and I will be glad to have your opinions for anything that you think that is missing, or you can provide any feedback. So I will give you some context, and then I'm using this approach of environmental governance and some preliminary findings and the implications, and then we will have the Q&A. So this is the Sico Valley in Honduras, part of what the communities are back really in the mountains. So this context, my study is about forest governance or environmental governance, conservation, and the livelihoods. So I want to start saying about conservation and governance is these two communities that I went are communities we have been working since many years, maybe more than 15 years. And then, but they went through from forest management and then they, and now that I went back, like, 30 years later, they are into another kind of activity, is a micro-hydroelectric project production. And that's what I went, because they have been, I would say from my eyes, successful, but I want to know what they think, if they is successful for them or it's not, what they have been through. So this is important in the eyes of conservation because it's a reserve. This is the largest reserve of our country of Honduras, and is the most important. It's a biodiversity, reserve, biosphere reserve. The people on the, they are watching, I think. So the map is Copen and El Venado, which is the name of the two communities. And these are areas under management. And sorry about the Spanish, because my colleagues in Honduras, those are the ones who are really good at mapping. So they send me that really nice map. And then there are two communities you can see there, and there are two areas under management, and they are in between this valley, between these two rivers, one of the biggest rivers, and it is a very productive valley, and because of that, is a lot of pressure for agricultural and cattle ranching, but they are adjacent to this reserve and also to this national park, which is also a lot of biodiversity, but it's still under declaration. It's not official yet, so that's what I didn't mention, but it's there I mean, it's part of the process is going on. So we also have, it's in this size of, you can see the reserve there and the valley in between the two rivers, the two protected areas. Okay, so let's talk now about the livelihoods and how we end up working on there and how I went there. So there is a social forestry system in Honduras, which is meant to help communities to help them organize, to do management. So this is pretty much what is into this social forestry system. There is the Forest Service, the ICF, National Institute of Forest Conservation, who set this right through the state, through the ICF, set this everything that has to do with protected areas, forest management, and the government retains, in the case of what we are talking here about rights on land or any other rights, these areas are national. Most of the Honduras forests is public lands. So the government retains the right to exclude others and to impose some restrictions on those rights for the communities. So how they do that? Transfer those rights through these usufruct contracts, and they assign this management right to these social forestry system organizations who have to plan according to these communities' forest management plans, and they can be short, this 1 year, medium, 5 years, or long-term plans. And it's about sometimes 40, 30. It has been changing, but it's pretty much about 30 years, which is supposed to be the cycle that you wait for a tree to be lopped. So to be commercially good to cut and sell the wood. So that's pretty much in every, they have related this community forest management plan with municipalities, communities, and pretty much all of the protected areas are surrounded by communities. So the idea is to have these communities into the management of the forest. And these communities are called the social forestry system organization. So I keep using it to set up the, okay, so that's the social forestry system. Has gone through a lot of changes, and it started back in 1974. And here we have the usufruct contracts, and then they went back and forth for 40 years, and sometimes they changed it. They took back the these usufruct rights. Sometimes they put some normativity on how much wood the people can extract, because in every of these areas there are forests. That is an area with two types of forests, and depending on the forest management plan we set up, and I say we because we were part of that as technicians. We have productive forest, which is about the forest that people can log, and we have protected forest. That's pretty much area that goes around all the course of the water courses, and everything that has to do with water or the watershed the community is protecting, because of the water that they drink comes from there. Okay, so then we have this new law, 2007, and then they return back the community rights through the usufruct contracts. And then we have, it has been like going up and down, but now we have 236 organizations, but only 142 contract management. And why? Because most of the people is not actually working on those areas, or they abandoned the contracts or the management plans. So this is pretty much the objective, or it is the objective on the page this year of the social forestry system, according to the Honduran Service, Forest Service. And as you can see, it's a lot of pressure put on communities. They must increase. That's literally what it says. Productivity. So the idea is a market-based approach. Is that the communities are given these areas, they are able to log or to get whatever they can sell, and with that commercialization of those products, they are able to manage that forest and even to comply with everything. But the government is not enforcing any law. They are restricting those rights to the people, and they are not really accompanying or giving assistance for any kind of management. So that's how we came as an organization to help to people to try to comply with that, because they were all the time like making efforts by themselves. And as we say, I don't know if in Latin America we say, when your mom sends you to the market and they give you a lot of piece of money and they want you to buy the bad things, and still when you come back, you have to give them back some change. It's kind of the same thing. I mean, it's giving you a lot of responsibility, but not giving you any tools to really accomplish that. So, see, this is just about an illustration. I don't mean to give you all these technicalities, but yeah, that's the way we set up every community, organize a group. That's the enterprises, the small forestry enterprises. Community forestry enterprises are actually the small group within every community that handle all the management. And they are given by the community council the right, or that will be the right, or to handle all this bureaucracy, to get the management approval, to get everything so they can get some out of the forest. It could be lumber, it could be any non-timber product. And then but they have to go through all that bureaucracy. And so that's what they are called, the community forestry enterprises. So we help those groups to set up all this map, all the technicalities. And I can talk about that a lot because he was the one who was to train some part of the forester who started with this. Okay, so there is this cooperative. Sometimes they are called cooperatives, sometimes they are called organizations, enterprises, but they are all kind of, community forest enterprises. We are gonna call them like that for this talk. And so, they are set up, as I told you, there is a total management area where you have production and you have protection, depending on the all these normative that we have in the Honduran law. And also we have the other community, El Venado, but the cooperative is called Mirabeza because it's made of 3 communities. So it is, as you can see, I put the picture in purpose. All the activities are artisanal. They don't use any machinery. They don't use any, because there is, the forest in Honduras is so very mountain, so there is no way to get skidders, things like machinery that they can, so they do pretty much everything on hand, or they have to carry by mules the woods. It's still, in spite of all these things, after several years, they got to be really good at managing the forest under this FAO criteria, and they were given this prize. But then, because of all this community rights, as you can see, there is this conflict of cooperatives have this your rights because the government is giving them some kind of management right, but actually the land on the ground belongs to somebody else. So de facto rights are the ones that really rule what is happening on the ground. So I just brought this picture because I found that this is what the theory recognizes is happening. Like there is this right of exclusion is the government is not given to communities, so they don't have any right to exclude people. They have to go to the authority and get the police to get involved. And so that can take many years for them to go to the authority, to police, and get a client, and then that client can be actually enforced. So this is what actually happened because of all the conflicts we have, these conflict land uses. And on top of that, the area is also a very hot spot for narco activity. So, but as I said, in spite of everything, these people is thriving, and they were actually getting good out of, because one of the factor also is we are talking here about mahogany, which is actually a very high price worldwide. You can sell a good price, but still we were all the time trying to get market for any other species on the forest because wasn't the point to get very selective, and then wasn't the point to just take out the mahogany. So, but it was every time we try, the cost of transaction because of the remoteness of these areas made the deal of the business wasn't viable because you got to pay a lot of transportation costs, and also you got to pay a lot of bureaucracy because it's mahogany is a species under this CITES treaty. So it's a lot of tracking, it's a lot of things to do to prove that you are legal and you are legally managing the forest, and also sustainable forestry management is happening. So we start working with the different people that was working on the valley, and they we end up having this collaborative governance under this international model forest. Is actually an initiative in Canada that started as a conflict management initiative. So where people sit on the table and they recognize they have different interests, and those interests can be in conflict, but still they find a way to work together. And so that's what they recognize. And we were trying to go through this, and that's how, yeah. So for this study, I'm trying to work with this collaborative governance concept under those conceptions, and the concept of networking, governance, steering, coordination, institutionalized because these model forest networks are recognized by the government. Because as we say all the time, it's not about just not working with the government, because the only way you can really get any commercialization is under those laws. And so we are trying to cope with all this law bureaucracy, and still that's the only way we recognize we can do it. So as this concept is stating. So that's how we end up people in these two communities. We were working by that time as about 7 communities. But these 2 communities were the ones who were already involved with the production of their own energy. They were paying for a lot of, they were investing actually on solar panels, and they were keeping all the energy. You had to put these batteries, and so they like the idea of having these hydroelectric projects. And actually, yeah, it is an idea that comes from outside, but another community, they had already had the experience. So this project, paid by the United Nations Development Program, start bringing these ideas, and so asking people whether they think they can get involved with that kind of project. So at the end of 2 years, they actually set up the 2 projects, which are these. You put this very basic. It's less than 20 kilowatts, and they use the river that they have on the forested areas, which is part of the watershed where they are also taking. Some of them are the ones that are taking the water for drinking. Some of them are not, because it was depending on the capability or capacity of the river to produce that energy. But still, some communities didn't took the project. They didn't take the project. They decided they don't want the electricity. That's really interesting. Why? Because they could take it, they could take the opportunity, but they decide not to. So by the time the project was set up, it was taken as a successful case of green economy, because it coming from the natural resources. It produced some activity after the electricity. It's a lot of changes in the community, and actually there was one of the changes that we didn't really predict or pretend, or it was unintended, was the change of the social structure of the community. Because after everything was happening in the middle of a lot of pressure under the resources, and then the gold, there is this river that produces gold also. The gold price rise, and so all the people went to get gold up to the river. So as this community has electricity, it became the hub of the clandestine mining, the gold miners. So everything was really, when we come back, it was terrible because there was a lot of changes. You cannot find a place to stay in the community. All the girls were just with these new men inside, because they got a lot of money. So it was a lot of changes that we really didn't intend. But as the goal went down now, is the community get back to what it was before, pretty much. So now I'm going to talk about the approach that I'm trying to use for my study. These are formal forest governance policies. That's what we have. We have local institutions what actually rule in this arrangement in the ground and the communities. But we have impacts in the forest and the community livelihoods. And so I'm looking to see what those impacts are from the perspective of the community and how this can lead to pathways to equitable and sustainable conservation. Oh, that's my hope. And so the implications. So as way I see it, there we have the state formal policies illustrated by the social forestry system, the local institutional arrangement, what is happening actually in the community, and how these collide. And one is actually the one that is heavier in the ground. So we have these policies and practice clashing. So I'm looking to ecological integrity in the way that the forests have been conserved. Still, some have been under a lot of pressure, and the community livelihood from the perspective of the communities. From the so I hope if I can go further here, but my study will center this way. That's I'm trying to set up that way. So we have these two case studies with these two communities, and yeah, in this research, more than 13 years ago, and how this institutional arrangement with the local government inside the community have coexist with the legal policies or the formal policies, how they have that results with the system of the nonprofits, or some of them have not that much assistance, but yeah, there have been a lot of differences in one community to the other one. So that's variation also. It's something that I hope I can bring on my study. So this is one of the areas where used to be a lot of these kind of trees, but this is after this land was graved by land gravers, and these people were. This guy is part of one of the cooperative members, and they were allowed after this most of the land was burned because the guy wanted to raise cattle there, so he allowed them to take the trees, and that's what it seems born here. And he even charged them because he grabbed the land, he take them away, but he said you can still get the wood if you want to, but you have to pay me something. They pay. That's an unofficial tax. Okay, so this is also one of the theoretical framework I'm trying to use, this socio-ecological system approach, where I can see the ecosystem service in the way of water ecosystem service coming from the forest, the local governance, everything that has been going on in between groups, how the different groups think, how the women, how the men, how the elders, how the youth thinks about this, and how those variations between every community are something that I can look in the way that it has been influenced successful or failures from their point of view, success or failure. So, and how these have been impacting their livelihoods. Okay, so another theoretical concept that is looking at the communities as there are units or not homogeneous, they are made of these different sizes composition, because I'm looking to two communities, how these institutional arrangements work in every community, how they are the process of decision making. As I'm telling you, how the men look at the decision making, how the women look at those processes, and so what are the difference, and how these have any influence on how the way they manage the resource. Okay, so that's pretty much my objective, to look at this formal policy exemplified by the state, community forestry, as I told you, and this arrangement also. So the analysis will highlight and how these different influence the outcomes related to ecological integrity, and community livelihood. Just to reaffirm some of my question, and still everything is under revision. What socioeconomic factors and underlying motivation make these communities to, in spite of everything they fight against, how they engage in this hydropower production? What made them to? Because as I told you, there are some communities that decide not to be of this. And another of the question will be how these community members conceptualize that effects, what they consider successful, what they consider failure, depending on the way they are seeing from their livelihoods. And to what extent has this formal policy frameworks and internal governance structure affected the success or failure of community efforts? Yeah, and this pretty much specifying the forest conservation, because I can see the land changes, and also I can ask them how they feel about it. So these are pretty much what we have right now. We have still some forests under pressure, but we still have families working there. So I'm looking, when I was in Honduras, everyone was asking me is about rural electrification. So I had to say, no, it's not about rural electrification. It's about governance, how the people feel this, they feel owner of the forest, even though they don't have the rights, but they say they are willing to fight until the end for those forests, and how small energy projects align with these community efforts to protect their forests as the source of water and electricity and their livelihood. So I'm still thinking of my methodology, but I have some ideas here on data collection. So I need to make the links of the methodology with the actual tools that I'm going to use. So this is something under development. Mapping is going to be or something. And here I am interviewing one of the, this is one of the president of, they have this water council each of these two communities. So the preliminary results are these for this field visit that I told you. I went to Copen and El Venado. It's about 6 hours for the larger city. And then you have to go to the airport another 3 hours. So it's about 9 hours to go there, just to the town that you can stay, rent a hotel. But then you have to go other 2 hours to the actual place. So it's very remote. And that's one of the things that is I'm considering, because it depends also, you have to go with someone from inside, because to get into the communities, you have to know which people you are going to interview. It's not that you are going to choose, but the time, because it's a lot of pressure of what are you doing there? What are you researching? What you want to do with the research? So you have to be really like to know where to go, when to go, and who will do the job. So that's my preliminary semi-structured interview. I was able to do 32 interviews in these 4 subgroups. I went also to the capital city to interview some of the people working on this new, I will show you, policy. They are working about electricity production. Yeah, we have questionnaires, and we have this government, non-government, who has been involved in this kind of projects. And so doing all this research about what is going on about this policy, we have this Guía de Resolvimiento, which are guidelines for communities. The government is very interested now in the production of electricity, because it's a crisis for electricity in the country. Like in the cities, we get like every day 2 to 3 hours, and sometimes during the weekend you have the whole Sunday without electricity. So it's very interesting in this community. You have electricity 24 hours, better than anyone in the city. And that's one of the jokes of my sister, because they were, why are you doing so far? And I said, I have electricity here, you don't. So they were laughing about it. So yeah, the government is planning to extend this, and they call it this autonomy electrification, because they say they are giving rights again to the communities to produce energy. And then I think it's good intended, but still they are not looking like carefully to the community how they really manage every of these projects. So I think something is going to be interesting. I was gratefully helped by these people who is now working. One of my former professors in Snacksford, which is my forestry school. He was in charge of all this project energy. But now this cooperation from German is very interesting to set up this project and try these pilot projects to set up models that they can follow for new communities. But because this year is election year, so they are kind of saying, waiting what will happen at the end of this year. So as these collaborative strategies with all these policies going on and those participatory processes about renewable energy are happening, I think that this study, looking at the experience from people who are already have hydropower experience at the community level, can help to can offer any vital insight for these new policies. So that will be pretty much my what I have so far, and I just want to thank the people who made this possible until this point, which is the Latin American studies with the Thinker Travel Program and the Fundación Maldera Verde, who hosts my all my activities down in Honduras, and of course my advisors, who are always there asking me questions. I'm glad that I'm learning a lot. And this, as I told you, the professor my former professor, who is now the technical leader of this project at the Secretary of Natural Resources, and yeah, and all the people who have participated. So I'm open to any questions. Now, thank you for your attention. And then we can ask.